Alright, now every time I make a pen, you end up cutting them blanks and you get pieces left over. And I've got me a pretty good bucket going here. Got one there that wasn't quite in center good enough. Got some leftover desert ironwood. Got odd and end scraps anywhere and everywhere, and they just pile up out here until I get ready to do something with them. So I'm going to take and I'm going to clean all these up. We're going to sand all this finish off of here from the stabilizing compound. I'm going to stick it in another bucket and we're going to carry it up there and make some molds out of it. Okay, I had that one tub I went through and I got all of them that's been stabilized and got them cleaned up. And then I found another 5-gallon bucket of just pieces I had odd and end over the years when I first started. So I cleaned up a bunch of them, and now we got room to pour plenty of things. So I'm going to stick them in there. I got them in there with my bowls and my drying box. I got all my bowl blanks in there. We'll just leave them in there a few days, make sure they're good and dry before we pour everything, because them other 2 buckets, they was not stabilized. So it still should work for this application, but we'll make sure they're all good and dry before we do our deep pouring and casting. Alright, now this first bucket, first one I'm gonna make down. This is all my, got a few odd and end pieces, but this is all my scraps off my pen blanks. Just drop them in there like so. There's no special placing. It's all random. And all of these are either stabilized, unless it's that piece of that ironwood, and that ironwood is hard and dense. You don't have to stabilize it. Now I do recommend doing like I did and putting them all in the putting them all in your hot box to go ahead and dry them all out before you actually do this, in case you know, we're in Louisiana, we get moisture everywhere. It could be the middle of the summer and 110 degrees outside and it'd still be humid, and we'd have to dry out more wood. So be aware of that, because if you don't dry it out, that epoxy isn't going to set right. Now this tape I use is just a, they call it a floor tape, but it's a vinyl tape, which means it stretches it and it does not stick to the epoxy. It'll pull off pretty good and it don't leave all that residue. I got one done. Now these others is I found a bucket of old scrap wood, just odd and end pieces, and I cleaned them up. Now these aren't stabilized, but I'm going to do it anyway. We're going to see what happens. Since they're all dried out, I believe it's going to, yes, these are my stabilized ones, but since it's all been dried out, I believe that epoxy will soak in there pretty good. Now, you want to get a random, deal going, you can get the big pieces and small pieces, and whatever type of wood you got out there and just stack them in there, and that'll give them a randomness. Okay, there's that one, and then one more. Got some of the bigger pieces and smaller pieces and upright and sideways and a lot of people don't like using the bark, so they say the bark sheds off the wood, but when you're doing something like this and you're totally encasing everything, I haven't found any problem with it. And you go to turning it and you just got more uniqueness. Okay. That's that one. We'll get them taped up. There, that was holding it. I should be able to use just one here. You just don't want to squeeze this. I've done them before. So if you squeeze them in like that and tape them hard, guess what? You ain't gonna have a round piece when you get done. So the rounder the better. Makes it easier for a finished product. And now we got that, then we are ready to pour. Get these out of the way. I'll stick these back in my hot box and they'll be ready for another one. Alright, now we're ready to mix it up. Now I have purposely chosen some odd colors. We got the pale gold, antique silver. I got some orange here that I very seldom use, and then I got the Aladdin's lamp, which is like a bronze type of deal. So we're just gonna see what we can come up with and mix some colors up and pour and go from there. Now what I'm using is the 4-inch deep pour epoxy resin, because we got a good 6 inches, but you got all the wood in there, so it ain't a constant force. So that should keep the heat down and keep it from cracking and busting on you. But I always mark mine 2A, 1B. That way I ain't got to look down here at the bottom every time to see that there's marked on top. And if I use all these cans, so I'll use 8 ounces of the B, and then I'll fill it up to 24 ounces with the A, and that'll give me my proper mix. So I'm gonna go ahead, probably fast forward through all this, but I'm gonna start mixing up and pouring. got them all 3 poured. I got them set up here. You can see the wood in there, so they will be translucent a little bit. That's good. And I see a bunch of bubbles come up in this one here. That's one of them that didn't have the stabilized wood in there, but this works well when I'm doing my big bowl blanks and something similar, so I'm expecting it'll be okay here. But there's all my coloring. I got them for that. I can't remember where I got these from, but this here I got off of eBay from that Health and Beauty. Then of course you can get some from Magic Resin here, and I got 30 different colors there. So don't be afraid to mess up with your color. I have come up with some combinations that I just thought were ugly in my honest opinion, but somebody else liked them. You know, and it seemed to be one of them that's first to sold. I don't know if I got bad taste or somebody else got bad taste, or we just all have different taste. So don't be afraid to experiment and just use whatever and mix whatever and see what turns out and go from there, because somebody's going to like it. Alright, we'll see y'all in a week. Alright, now I've gotten busy over the last few weeks and I haven't continued on these. That tends to happen with me. So I'm going to go ahead and demold them now, take them out of the container. One thing I want to point out is you see all the bubbles here and here? That tells me that these two are the ones that had a bunch of unstabilized wood in it. So that bubbled out, and because the air bubbled out and it pushed into the wood, or pulled into the wood. Now this one here had all the stabilized in it. And it don't have near as many bubbles. There was a couple of pieces that may have been unstabilized, but it don't have near as many bubbles. But I'm curious on, I know these are going to work good because I've done them before, but I'm curious on how these is gonna look whenever I get them out. And I don't know a real good way to do this. I may have to destroy my containers, but when I've demolded them before, it was only after a few days instead of so long, and they seem to come out good then. But these little things ain't but a couple bucks a piece, so. And I always use my used ones. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah. Let me get my. And we end up with 3 slightly different colors there. Now we can pick one, take it out there and turn it. And I don't know which one I'm going to do, but I'm probably going to grab one of these with the more bubbles, just so I can see how it looks on the inside. I know these turn out well, but I'm not sure about these because they're not been stabilized. But I'm going to check them out and see. Now I do know if I would have put them in a pressure pot, I would have probably gotten a better concentration into the wood, but you never know. So we're just going to try it and see. Okay, came out here a few weeks ago to do this. I was going to put on a new blade on my saw so I could cut all that stuff off of it and turn it. And I opened it up and it had a bird's nest, and it had baby birds in it, so we had to wait in order to do this. But that's just one of the disadvantages about having equipment out in this type of environment. All kind of animals gonna love getting them cubby holes. But I can put the blade on now. They're all hatched and gone and taken off, so put the blade on, we'll continue. Alright, as you can see in the video, we got a few spots in here, some hollow spots. We got a crack there and a few other things. There's a hollow spot there. But what I found in the past is you can use some of this tumbler art epoxy, and it's a fast set epoxy, and you can mix it up and put it up on the outside, and that'll cure and hold everything together. And I believe it's going to fill in most of these spots. This is one of the first times I've used the wood that is not stabilized, so that is probably why I have so many pit holes in it. Now I could have probably put it in a vacuum chamber and then in a pressure pot, and it would have got rid of all these little bitty voids, but I was just sampling to see what it would do and playing with different colors. So I'm going to use this art epoxy and we'll see if it closes it up. I'm going to mix it up and put it on here. Y'all enjoy. That's going to be... Now, one thing I want to mention, if you get these little Dixie cups, you can see this out here, you get 3 of them just alike, that makes it so easy to gauge by volume when you're mixing, whether 2 to 1, 1 to 1, but when you gauge by volume, if they got the patterns on there and you don't need a full cup, well, that's the easy way to do it. Alright, and there it is. I'm just going to leave that turning here, and it'll work a lot of them swirls out there, I think, but I'm just going to turn it up a little bit and let some of them blend out for a few minutes. And yes, I have a bad habit about getting my fingers in my work when I take the gloves off, but that'll be okay. And maybe that'll... And this stuff is a fast set, so you got to put it on pretty quick. Cause this is the same stuff they use on them tumblers. We're gonna turn it down now, that way everything will just stay in place and turn and turn. But that should get rid of most of the imperfections that we've seen on there. Well, not really get rid of them, but hide them. All right, see y'all when it gets done. All right, now y'all seen this little candlestick from the beginning to the end. Now this is, I always leave the tenon in there, and people like me to sign it, so I do that and leave the date. But now remember, this is the one with the unstabilized wood. I got 2 coats of the epoxy on there because the first coat had some bubbles because the wood was not stabilized. But once I sanded it down real good and put a second coat, that turned out well. So now you know how to make a scrap wood candlestick, and it works. I like to do it with the stabilized a lot better than the unstabilized, but you can do it with either. And if you seal it with that fast set epoxy, then it shines real good, and it'll kind of fill in some of the imperfections. And then you get the brass cups on top for the candlestick. So this is for a 3-inch candlestick, or you can do the small little candlesticks to put in there. But tell me what y'all think. A thumbs up if you like it. Thumbs down if you don't. Tell me what you think. Subscribe to my channel. You want to see some more of this. Later.